Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar from SME Environmental COI titled ITRC Team Updates for PFAS 1,4-dioxane and Vapor Intrusion Mitigation by State Regulators. I am Tamel Harbison with SME's national team, and I'll be assisting in the background today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping rules. You have entered into the session muted, but we ask that you double check your microphones and phones to see if you're muted. We ask that you submit all questions via the questions tab on your control panel, and that you are able to download today's presentation and PDH certificate from the handout section. This session is recorded and will be able to view later on this week via the Environmental COI webpage. And I would like to turn it over to the chair of the Environmental COI, Rick Weiss.
Thank you, Tamel. Hi, this is Rick Weiss, and I'm the chair of the Environmental Community of Interest for SAMI. Our link to our website is there. We have webinars. We put together technical programs for the JETSI, and we welcome your involvement. And if you go to the SAMI website, you can find if you get involved, the community of interest. I want to especially thank Patty Reyes of ITRC, who I've had the pleasure of working with for many years as an ITRC team member, on collaborating with SAMI, because I think today we're going to have a great presentation, which Patty Reyes, the director of ITRC, is going to moderate, focusing on three really important high priority environmental issues that affect the DoD community: PFAS, 1,4-dioxane, and vapor intrusion mitigation. I don't want to steal Patty's thunder. She's going to give an overview of ITRC, but think about how we may be able to collaborate with ITRC as SAMI in a strategic partnership. I think there's a tremendous amount they could bring to the table for SAMI membership, and our membership getting involved with ITRC teams would also be a tremendous asset to ITRC. With that, I'm going to disappear into the background and turn it over to my colleague and friend, Patty Reyes.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks very much. And we really are looking forward to partnering with SAMI. Can everybody hear me? I'm not on mute, right? And Tamel, you've handed me the pointer, and I'm going to take a few minutes, and it's not moving down. Tamel, can you flip the slide? Oops, now I can. So I'm going to take a few minutes. I know that some of you are familiar with ITRC, but I have a few slides to 10 that I'm going to quickly run through before I turn it over to our three technical speakers that are going to talk, as Rick just said, about those topics that are so important to the Department of Defense and to all of our states. So in case you're not familiar with ITRC, what is it? Well, we are the state-led coalition that was formed by the federal government 25 years ago to ensure good science and best management practices were available nationwide. We didn't want, some states to have more resources than others and not to be using their best practices. So the feds organized us under a federal advisory committee. It was part of the Western Governors Association. And then 5 years later, it was transferred to the Environmental Council of States. Our purpose and mission. So it's really to advance, as I say, innovative. Innovative is the key word there. Innovative decision making. We want all states to have the resources available through ITRC or through any other state organization to make those sound environmental decisions. Essentially breaking down knowledge gaps and allowing sound decision making nationwide. So when we started 25 years ago, we were 100% focused on land remediation issues. And approximately 5 years ago, we saw the need to expand into other media, air, and water issues. And in the last few years, we've added teams that have been focused on topics such as stormwater, methane releases, etc. So we're no longer just focused on remediation as we were traditionally. And so here's who we are and how we are run. ITRC is the nonprofit research arm of ERIS. ERIS was set up by the feds to be able to take federal grants because ECOS, who I work for, Environmental Council of States, they represent all of the state commissioners, and they are a lobbying organization. So ERIS and ITRC are the nonprofit research that we're not allowed to do lobbying or policy making. And we are run by a board of advisors. There are 7 state voting members. And then we have non-voting members from our federal grant partners, as well as industry. Industry has 2 representatives on the board. And then we have 1 tribal member as well. Then you can see how we are organized at the bottom there with our teams. All 50 states and territories are represented. We have stakeholders, our industry partners, and then a completely separate training team. We'll go quickly here. Here's how we do our mission. We really are focused on all of our information is focused on teams, and that's how we get our work done. And we strive to reach consensus on these documents. It's not just documents now, it's a lot of other types of products that we're delivering, such as videos and online and classroom training. We've moved away from our big, huge technical documents that we would do 20 years ago to a lot of small pieces of information, such as very technical fact sheets that are more like 20-page fact sheets rather than our 450-page senior documents. And as I said, each team is led by 2 state team leaders, as well as every team has to have another minimum of 5 state team members on. And then anybody else that wants to join that team is welcome to. The PFAS team, for example, has over 600 members. That's our biggest team ever, and it's been going on for a few years, as you'll see when Kristi speaks. So what are the benefits of ITRC? Well, for those that are not familiar, you really are focused on more efficient decision-making and leveraging relationships and partnerships across a large network of industry leaders and regulators. We pride ourselves on being all-inclusive, so our membership really encourages all abilities and skills. You don't need to be a technical expert on that topic. In fact, we have public stakeholders on teams that are completely unfamiliar with that topic, and that's fine. We really do collaborate and come up with what we believe is the optimum solution for that particular environmental problem. Our membership is about 1,300 people this year, and about half of it is industry, and the other half are the state and federal and local regulators. And then you can see we have the small percents of academia, tribal, public stakeholders, and then international governments. We do have a large international representation from industry as well. It's included in that industry number. These are our 3 federal partners that provide funding. These are the ones that have participated for the last 25 years with us. As you can imagine, the Department of Defense is our biggest funder, and all of that funding comes through either CERCLA ESTCP or the Defense Environmental Restoration Program. So they provide almost 50% of our total funding. And I'm assuming that a lot of you guys are industry folks, and this is for information quickly. We receive funding from industry, and this is our annual dues from companies. It's not on an individual basis. You can have many people from one company join. It would be the same price. It goes from the size of the companies, $250 a year up to $7,500. Those last $3 amounts, those are our sponsors. So there it's $250 to $7,500 a year. And then, so why join us next year in 2021? And we really hope that we can partner and come up with some new members and a new relationship with SAMI. But these are the teams for 2021, and there's one missing, but we have 2 that are continuing. That's the PFAS team and a soils risk team. And then we have 4 new teams, brand new. Membership just opened up December 1st. And the teams will kick off in January. So we have a new one on microplastics, going to be very unique. We expect a huge international crowd on that team. We also have one on environmental data management for best practices, EDM. That's a really important issue right now for the states to translate, and working with EPA to translate the same data elements across states. We also have one on hydrocarbons, which is taking 5 old ITRC teams and bringing them back up and looking at what we can do for training on hydrocarbons. And the last new team is a spinoff from our harmful algal bloom team that we've just finished their work. For the last 2 years, they've been working on harmful algal blooms, but they did not focus on benthic. So this team is going to focus on benthic cyanobacteria. And that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime, either in the chat, we have time for a couple there, or we can do it at the end for all the speakers, your preference. Rick, Jane, do you want to proceed? Or don't see any questions in the chat.
Yeah, yeah, I'm getting, Tamal, it says somebody was having trouble typing in questions. Yeah. So
okay,
we might
maybe we can get that working, and after Kristi's presentation, take questions or take them all at the end to save time. But right now, I'd like to introduce Kristi Herzer, who is one of our state team leads on the PFAS team, and Kristi is representing the Vermont Department of Environmental Quality. No, Department of Environmental Conservation. Yeah, thank you, Kristi. Welcome.
Thank you, Patty. Right. Hi, y'all. I'm Kristi Herzer, as Patty said, from the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, and I've been a member of the ITRC PFAS team since its inception in 2017, and I've been a subgroup member or subgroup leader since 2018 of the sampling and analysis section. And on behalf of our team leaders, Bob Mueller, Kate Emma Schlosser, Sandra Goodrow, as well as our program advisors, Leslie Hay Wilson and Jim Rocco, I want to thank you for the opportunity to introduce you to the ITRC PFAS team. PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are a large family of chemicals that vary considerably in their physical and chemical properties and in their potential risks to human health and the environment. Even with decades of widespread global use, it's only relatively recently that PFAS have come to our attention. And accordingly, our understanding is rapidly evolving about how PFAS are released, how they behave in the environment, and the risks they may pose, as well as strategies to remediate the impacts. The products that I'll tell you about today were developed with the help of all of the PFAS team members. However, they were led by the writing subgroup leaders, and I won't call everyone out, but they are listed here on the slide. I do want to introduce you to our subgroups. We have history, use, and naming conventions, surface water quality, which is our newest subgroup, sampling and analysis, fate and transport, physical chemical properties and site characterization, treatment methods, aqueous film forming foams, or AFFF, stakeholders, regulations, toxicity and risk assessment, risk communication, and training. More than 650 professionals have assembled from 48 states and Washington, D.C. to contribute their expertise and interest to develop readily accessible technical resources. As of the middle of November, our membership was at 671, plus our ITRC staff, which brought us up to 685 members. Our team strives to provide a balanced overview of the current state of knowledge about PFAS to support decision-making associated with the management of PFAS contamination. The resources prepared by the team are available for free on the ITRC website. You can find an introduction to PFAS in a series of fact sheets that we first published in 2017 and 2018, and we streamlined and amended them in 2020 with updated content and new topics. For greater detail, you can refer to the several hundred-page technical and regulatory guidance document that we published early in 2020. Supplemental information includes, among other materials, regularly updated tables that summarize guidance and regulatory values for PFAS across the US and in select other nations. We've also prepared online training modules that are available on YouTube. And when we are available to meet in person, we provided workshops workshop trainings to over 3,000 attendees. Most recently, we've been hosting roundtable webinars that allow attendees to direct questions to expert panelists about the finer details of the guidance document. We also have 12 external files that have additional information that are linked in the applicable document sections of the PFAS web-based document. These provide more in-depth information for the specific topic. Some, such as the PFAS water and soil values spreadsheet, are updated regularly. And you'll note that I say 12 files, but 10 are listed, and that is because the bioconcentration factor tables and treatment technologies have 2 files associated with those sections. To keep pace with the emerging science, the team is working on 2 updates to the guidance document scheduled for the calendar year 2021. The revisions will include new information about existing topics, such as emerging technologies for PFAS treatment, as well as address new subject matter, such as information needed to address PFAS contamination in surface water. The team plans to offer more roundtable discussions, as well as new in-depth training modules. And as I just mentioned, we've got the 2 revisions for next year. So first, we have edits to our current content in naming conventions and use, firefighting foams, fate and transport, ecological toxicity, ecological risk assessment, as well as site characterization. And then we have new content. We've created a new section for surface water quality. And these materials are currently being reviewed in our ITRC external review process. Each of the writing subgroups are working on new content, and we have new, as I said, the new surface water quality section that's being generated. Once it is finalized, it will reference other material within the document. Its purpose is to describe the current state of PFAS science and practice for the protection of surface water. And things you can find in that new section are the status of state and federal surface water protection efforts regarding PFAS, available information for the protection of human health and biota, sampling and analysis information, as well as a discussion about PFAS containing foam on surface water. So each of the writing subgroups are working on new content that's based on the current literature and emerging science. Some of those that you can look forward to are new source information and links to occurrence data, information describing the PFAS family, new content for AFFF, updates to the physical and chemical properties tables, expanded bioaccumulation, bioconcentration, and biomagnification factor data tables, new information for fate and transport processes, including leaching, and new information for source identification, and that will be located in multiple sections, AFFF, sampling and analysis, as well as site characterization. We also are significantly updating the sampling section, and when new information about analytical methods comes out, we will be updating that. We'll have updates to the treatment technology section and tables. We'll also have new content for human health and ecological toxicity. We're updating our regulatory program section that's going to include a new external summary table, and we'll be adding new case studies. The PFAS team has been involved in training and outreach efforts during the length of our project. We've conducted in-person workshops when it was safe to do so, and we've trained over 3,000 participants that way. New this year are our PFAS roundtable webinars. More than 1,300 participants have engaged in those roundtable webinars so far this year. We have 2 planned for next year. They've been very well received. We have on April 6th AFFF and treatment technologies, and then in the summer, June 10th, human and ecological health effects, site risk assessment, risk communication, and stakeholder perspectives. So look forward to those. So we've got a lot of members, but we always want more. We'd love to have you join us. You can sign up directly on the ITRC website, or you can reach out to any of our team leaders to see how you can best fit in based on your skills and interests. We have monthly team meetings. The next one's actually coming up next Tuesday, December 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We also meet in smaller subgroups that I've listed out for you, and here they are on the slide. There are many roles. You can be a researcher, writer, reviewer, editor, trainer. As a team member, you'll be working to further the understanding of PFAS and how releases of PFAS may impact our health and the well-being of our environment. Thank you for your consideration of the PFAS team, and also thank you to the current and past PFAS team members for their ongoing contributions and collaboration. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, Kristi. I don't see any questions posted, and I'm not sure if that's, a few people said they were having trouble with typing their questions in. You have to go down into the blank box and send it in. So, maybe we will take them at the very end. Hopefully that can get figured out. And I'll also check chat, but we're hoping to have them in the questions section. Thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, I will hand it off to the 1,4 Dioxane group.
Thank you, Kristi. I'm trying to advance the slides and it's not doing it. Tamal, can you just go ahead and advance the slide for me, please? Thank you. I will just say next slide so that makes it easy. Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks for having us. The 1,4-dioxane team is very excited to talk to you about our 1,4-dioxane team and the products we came up with. As you know, 1,4-dioxane has been an emerging contaminant of concern for quite a while right now. And the main reason is because the characteristics of 1,4-dioxane posing different challenges when it comes to site investigation, remediation, and closure. One of the challenges is that it's not detected using standard volatile organic compound analytical methods, and therefore most solvent sites are actually unaware of the likelihood of impacts from 1,4-dioxane. Second, there are almost no field screening methods that are appropriate for assessing the levels of contamination at a site without fixed laboratory analysis. And the last main issue with 1,4-dioxane is that lab analytical methods are plagued by the difficulty in separating 1,4-dioxane from water samples due to its miscibility and low Henry law constant. All these struggle everybody has out there with 1,4-dioxane pretty much led to that ITRC has a 1,4-dioxane team trying to tackle all these problems and answering the questions. Next slide. So I wanted to pretty much introduce the speakers today. This is me, Gladys Lear. I work for the Florida Department of Health, and I am one of the 1,4-dioxane co-team lead. And then we have Bill DiGiuseppe. Everybody knows Bill, of course, and he's going to talk about the difficult part, about the technical part of our tech rec, and I actually get to talk about the easy ones. Next slide. So we're going to introduce the team to you pretty quick. Then we will talk about the final products or material the team produced. The timeline we worked on, we will discuss any future plans, and as mentioned, Bill will talk about the technical topics, the highlights of what the team came up with and you see in our products. Next slide, please. So the team in 2020 2020 was quite big, actually. We had 135 active members and 150 interested parties. So the active members are the ones that, as the name said, are actively involved. They join the team calls, they do reviews, they give their input and their expertise. While interested parties, they still can, you know, join and phone calls and even say something, but they don't really have to say, yeah, I'm going to write something or I'm going to review something. But we had quite a turnaround. We had a little bit more the first year, but it wasn't much of a difference. Next slide. Out of the 135 active members, we were a great mix of private sector, state government, federal government, local government, academia, and we also had a public stakeholders, because we always want to make sure that the public is heard in all our ITRC teams, not just in the 1,4-dioxane team. Next slide. So we are very proud to present to you that we actually developed 6 fact sheets. We also are in the final phase of our technology and regulatory guidance document. It has been with the editor. It came back. We had some tiny revisions, but we are hoping to publish it in January. And we are also we already have developed some training, and we are right now practicing on the training. The training is split in 6 modular courses that go along with our sub-chapters, which discuss the history and use of 1,4-dioxane, the regulatory framework, fate and transport, sampling and analysis, toxicology and risk assessment, and treatment technologies. We decided that we have one main RBT training where it will be 2.5 hours long, as we are known it from ITRC, but then afterwards the recordings, everybody can choose their topic of interest and can just choose, like, let's say, I just want to listen to what was discussed in the sampling analysis, so they can just choose that specific topic. And we find that this is more efficient for everybody's time and learning experience. We also have only put in a small chapter of risk communication, as we do have now a great risk communication guidance document and toolkit that came out of the PFAS team. It was decided, why reinventing the wheel when there is such a great document out there, and all the emerging concern can pretty much feed off it and can put their case studies in there, and can follow also the toolkit when you have an issue or want to have to do a risk communication with a 1,4-dioxane site. So I invite you all to check this out on the ITRC website. I guess when you just go on the website or you Google ITRC risk communication, it will come up, and you can find the team and the documents. Next slide. So this is our timeline. It was actually quite a busy timeline, and yes, we all still have main jobs to do, but we had a super trooper team. They just worked through it and never gave up and just got it done. And you can see we started out with the fact sheets, and then as mentioned, we are finishing the tech reg. It's supposed to be out there January 21. And also our training, we are very actively doing our practice runs right now and discussing what goes best. We already have our trainers selected, and I'm looking forward to next year when we all can actually present and give the training. We had a outreach information session at the AEH East conference in October 2019. And we also had another poster presentation already in December 2019 at the SERDP ESTCP conference. As you can see, 2020 kind of like, you know, we just gotta skip that year. So, but we have a lot of outreach planned for next year, since most conferences that were planned to be this year are now being gonna be virtual, and we are planning to be there. Next slide. And that brings me to the future plans. Our live 1,4-dioxane ITRC IBT training session is planned for March and October 2021. We also will have a post-modular training course on ITRC 1,4-dioxane in the webpage. We are collaborating with the ITRC risk communication team to develop and offer a workshop. We don't have an approximate time yet, but ITRC heard everybody and they know there's high interest of a workshop with risk communication. We already had several meetings, and hopefully late spring, maybe very early summer, there will be approximately a 4-hour workshop. I don't want to say too much because things may change, but the workshop will be there. It's just a question when and how. And then we also will present a 4-hour 1,4-dioxane workshop at Patel at the Chlorinated Conference in 2021. Next slide. And that's what was my part. I want to give it to my wonderful co-presenter, Bill. And as I said, he's doing the team highlights, the difficult part that I'm actually glad he took it off me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gladys. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a teaser of some of the types of information that these teams generate and that provide value to the overall community. So again, Gladys mentioned the different topics within these materials, and those apply to the fact sheets and the guidance document and the training. We cover these basic 6 topics overall in all of the products and materials that the ITRC produces, the ITRC Dioxane team produces. So for the first one, the history of use, we gathered information about the production of 1,4-dioxane from its initial synthesis or invention through its growth over time. And one of the key elements of this whole conversation is about the connection between 1,4-dioxane and chlorinated solvents that it is used to stabilize. And that is the main usage of 1,4-dioxane, and therefore we kind of laid out the history in terms of the relationship between the growth of chlorinated solvent usage, different solvents, TCE versus 1,1,1-trichloroethane, and tried to marry up the activities in the dioxane world to that. So that's the section on history and use goes into detail on that, as well as other applications and uses for 1,4-dioxane. Then the regulatory framework section, the group sent out a poll, and this is where the real value of ITRC comes in. It is a organization of state regulators fundamentally, and therefore, from my perspective as a consultant, getting access to the latest regulations and the latest understanding of where it's regulated and how it's regulated is really key. So the ability of ITRC to send out a poll and get results back from the majority of the states on what exactly they're doing related to 1,4-dioxane is really key. So the regulatory framework section talks about that process and about how it's regulated and why and where, which states, and how it's being handled. So again, quite a valuable tool for consultants to understand what the regulatory scenario is. Freight and transport, there's a nice discussion of the overall chemistry of 1,4-dioxane, the chemical characteristics and physical characteristics, towards a conceptual site model to understand what mechanisms and activities are happening in which portions of a plume or of a site. And so that each of these little areas is detailed in that guidance document, talking about what the mechanism is, how effective it is, and typically with, we have lots of references, tons of references in these documents showing exactly what, what the data show in terms of behavior in these different areas. The sampling and analysis section details the sampling difficulties or sampling aspects related to 1,4-dioxane, which are not necessarily that unique compared to perfluorinated compounds, for instance. But the analytical methods, there's a number of different methods out there, and each of them have strengths and weaknesses and are good for different media or different circumstances. One of the tools, one of the products from Chapter 4 was a flow chart to help the reader understand when a certain method is more appropriate than another, and sort of help steer you to get the correct method to meet your needs. So that's a useful portion of the document in that respect. And then we move to toxicology and risk assessment, detailed assessment of exposure routes and how migration affects the receptors that you might have. Overall, drinking water is a primary concern with 1,4-dioxane, so that this goes into the drinking water aspects, but it also talks about ecotoxicity and other potential exposures and places that might be concerns. So all that is detailed in the document, and these are sort of conclusions from one of the slides. The last topic is remediation and treatment technologies, and this is a very robust section. Big part of the team contributed to that, which has been really valuable. And the way they laid it out in that group was to compare and talk about fully demonstrated technologies versus emerging or experimental technologies. Also to talk about what technologies are actually less effective for 1,4-dioxane. In a lot of cases, the technology that might be appropriate for the chlorinated solvent co-contaminant isn't really appropriate for 1,4-dioxane, so that's something to understand. And then also, they laid out this figure, and all of the conversation kind of stems from this discussion of where a certain technology might be more appropriate than another within the plumes. Not everything is appropriate for every portion of the plume or for treatment in wastewater or other aspects like that. So that's all laid out in the document. And one of the things that I find really valuable on these teams is the teams are made up of a wide variety of people. You have industrial manufacturers, you have regulators, you have consultants, you have vendors who own certain technologies. We have labs, and DoD is present, and often others, other government entities as well. So it's a great collaboration amongst a wide range of people with different knowledge, different things to bring to the table that comes together to produce these really good, robust products. So that's it for the technical aspects of it. Are there any questions about the content or about the 1,4-dioxane team that Gladys or I could answer? Jump over to the questions and see if there's any.
Yeah, I was looking at that, Bill. I know one person had asked about if they would be able to see our presentations, and we said they'll be at the SAMI Environmental COI website. And then I don't think we have anything specifically for 1,4-dioxane. One question was just about if ITRC documents and products are available, and the ITRC website address was provided because those products are available to the public and to anybody who can access the website. So yeah, and then also there was one question about PFAS that was posted just about the latest updates, and they said to check the tech reg document at ITRC, but I don't see anything in particular for 1,4-dioxane yet.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I think we can migrate to the next section of the presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me, Bill?
Yes.
Excellent. So my name's Matt Williams, and while the slides are coming up, I'll introduce myself a little bit. I'm the environmental specialist with the Michigan Environmental Great Lakes and Energy, which used to be our Department of Environmental Quality. I've been involved with ITRC for multiple years on multiple teams. I was formerly a team leader for the vapor intrusion petroleum team, as well as I participated with some of the training on the original VI team. So we're moving on to trying to address one of the issues that some of the previous documents didn't have, and that's the vapor intrusion mitigation. So as let me see if I can get my slides to advance. So where we wanted to begin, though, is to talk a little bit about what is vapor intrusion and just make sure everybody was on the same page. So vapor intrusion is the process by which volatile vapors partition from the groundwater and they migrate up through the subsurface and into structures. So a lot of different places have different definitions, but we all wanted to make sure that we had a common definition to kind of move forward, as we kind of needed to know what vapor intrusion was, as well as what petroleum vapor intrusion is. So petroleum vapor intrusion is a subset of vapor intrusion that deals exclusively with petroleum hydrocarbons. And again, it's vapors that migrate through the subsurface and enter into structures. The one difference and defining feature from petroleum vapor intrusion from vapor intrusion is that petroleum vapor intrusion is likely to undergo biodegradation, which then allows for a unique screening process. And both of these things are clearly described in the ITRC documents. Where this document picks up is what is mitigation or vapor control. And so what we know is vapor control for any kind of volatiles or VOCs can include things like source remediation, which addresses it in the subsurface. It can also deal with things like active and passive mitigation, which eliminates the vapors as they enter into the structure. It also deals with things like rapid response, where we're taking actions inside the structure to prevent things while longer term remedies are in place, either probably active or passive mitigation, or maybe remediation. And finally, another type of mitigation could be institutional controls, which you put some kind of restriction on the property to prevent future use, or designs of a building so that things can progress with brownfield redevelopment or site closures. But all mitigation efforts are designed to reduce or prevent vapor intrusion from occurring. So one way or another, they're either addressing the vapors that come off through remediation, they're preventing the vapors from entering the structure through active or passive mitigation, they're addressing vapors that have entered the structure through rapid response, or they're using things like institutional controls to prevent them in the future. So I think the title kind of blurred it out a little bit. So the VIM mitigation, again, is implemented to reduce indoor air contaminants below applicable action and screening levels. And there's many different ones that different states have. And again, it's accomplished by modifying the pathway to reduce the mass or the flux of the contaminants as they come off of a contamination in soil and groundwater prior to entering the structure. And then the ending goal is to reduce the indoor air contamination or concentrations below, either through removal or dilution. So what we're hoping you can learn as we go through this brief introduction is some background on the team. We're going to give you an overview of the documentation that we prepared and the time frame we did it in. We're going to talk a little bit about the access you have to the available information that we produced as part of the ITRC team. And we're going to talk about some upcoming internet-based training that'll be offered. The one thing that this document does not cover that's important to some people, though, is emergency response actions, or things like where there's strong petroleum odors that enter a structure, or we have evidence of combustible or explosive conditions inside the building. So this training and the slides that we put together for vapor intrusion mitigation is not intended to address these types of situations, and probably is dealing with methane a little bit more often than not. And again, this, because there's different mitigation strategies, it doesn't address methane either. Our vapor mitigation team consisted of approximately 232 people. You can see that the makeup of our team is very similar to what ITRC's is in the percentages, but on a much smaller scale. We did have over 30 states represented, as well as the District of Columbia. And when you look at some of the federal partners that participated with our team, you can see that DoD was a larger component of our federal team members as well. So we had a pretty good breakdown. We had a wide variety of people that participated. And I think that that's one of the great things that we had on the team, is we did have a high level of participation from all of our members. The basis of the training, like I talked about, comes from two documents that ITRC already did. The 2007, January 2007, Vapor Intrusion Pathway, a Practical Guideline, which dealt with vapor intrusion in general. And then the more specific and the more recent October 2014, Petroleum Vapor Intrusion, which deals specifically with petroleum vapor intrusion and some of the unique approaches that you can have. What this training does is kind of pick up where these kind of left off. These two documents were mainly formed to help on the investigative process. And what this team did is picked up, and is after you found the mitigation or you found the potential unacceptable risks, this team picked up and tried to figure out what are the solutions or remedies that you can implement. Oops, went too far. Let me back up here. The mitigation steps, there's 9 mitigation steps that the documentation talks about, where you begin with a pre-system installation, which includes an assessment of the site conditions using things like a CSM or a conceptual site model. It talks about the technology selection and also how you would design and document the system. It goes also through the system installation process, including pre-construction meetings, installation oversight, as well as even some of the public outreach that you need to go through the process. And finally, in the end, it goes through the post-system installation, where we verify the system's performance through a combination of inspections, verification samplings, and we confirm the performance through a quality assurance and quality control program. It talks about the documentation as well as the long-term monitoring and maintenance that needs to be performed. This is an overview of the team and what they produced and kind of how they all relate to each other. You can see that the introduction is an overarching introduction to it, but we talk about conceptual site models and how they're overarching concepts and integrated, as well as throughout the whole different process. We have 4 main units, including rapid response and ventilation, active mitigation systems, passive mitigation systems, remediation and institutional controls. And then we have process fact sheets that help you through all those. But also we do a big portion on public outreach to show how throughout the whole process, that's an important part, because you will be in people's homes when we do these types of mitigation options. This is a document map that you'll find in the training. We're wrapping up the class right now. This will be coming live by the end of December. You can see that in 18 months, we were able to produce 10 fact sheets, 16 technology information sheets, and 4 checklists. And this document map is a way that allows people to see how they're all interacted and all interact, as well as provides quick links that will allow you to use from the ITRC website and allow you to jump to the different fact sheets or tech sheets or checklists. One of the neat things that are in the design and implementation of the mitigation approaches is this rating system, similar to what you would see in consumer reports. It talks about the different approaches and provides ratings on different categories or principal considerations on how important they are to the different approaches. So you could go through things and you can look at things like the subgrade soil type, and you can see how important they are, whether it has a high impact, a medium impact, or a low impact, or maybe it's not even applicable to your mitigation strategy. And then it provides you further information on these. But this is one of the good things, one of the key things that we did and to look for in the upcoming information. The training modules that we have, and we're going to talk about here in just a minute, talk about the introduction. It also talks about the conceptual site model and why it's important for mitigation. It talks about public outreach, how you integrate it throughout the process, rapid response and different things that you can do, active and passive mitigation, remediation, institutional controls, system verification, as well as emerging technologies. So I'm going to spend a little time and kind of go through each of the modules so that you can see, and hopefully you'll tune in for it as they come live here shortly. But the conceptual site models is a key thing that goes throughout the life cycle of a project. Most people are very familiar with conceptual site models. A mitigation CSM helps people identify information needed and what their mitigation options are. And there's a checklist that actually will go through and help you decide what your mitigation approach is. This CSM also helps support public outreach. When we get to the public outreach module, it talks about differences for mitigation strategies and how to make some of those communications when you're out there in the public. The outreach module begins before mitigation and it continues throughout the whole process. So, and it also talks about how reaching out to the public and being part of it is part of everyone's job. The rapid response and ventilation talks about what is a rapid response for vapor intrusion and when it should be implemented. It talks about what type of engineering and administrative controls are appropriate, and it provides 3 major approaches. The active mitigation system talks about what makes a system an active mitigation. It talks about the 4 major types of active mitigation approaches that you can have, and it provides tools that give you information on general design components, the pros and cons of different type of approaches that you may be implementing, and cost considerations. It also discusses how you can support public outreach as you're going through this, and it gives you review considerations if you're a regulator for the active system design. Passive mitigation are systems that basically do not require the use of power in order to function. And this section as well talks about different technologies and approaches that basically block or divert vapor away or around the structures. It talks about approaches that can be used for a successful system design as well as installation. And for passive mitigation, the installation and the design are probably more key elements than the long-term on OM&M. It talks about 5 major types of passive mitigation approaches, and it goes through similar to what's outlined in the petroleum vapor intrusion document. The remediation and institutional controls talks about the difference between just implementing remediation and mitigation, and how sometimes you may be able to implement a remediation strategy as a mitigation approach. And that's basically things, it basically outlines 2 specific types of soil remediation methods, which includes soil vapor extraction and multi-phase extraction. So those are basically the 2 approaches when we talk about remediation. And it also introduces institutional controls and how those work when we look at them in form of a type of mitigation. It goes through the advantages and disadvantages as well. The system verification OM&M and exit strategy is a module that we do because I think that this is one of the important things is what do we do? How do we verify that it's working? How do we verify that it's working long-term? And after we install the systems, what's our exit strategy? These modules or this module talks about how you can do all those different steps. And it also recognizes that proper system operation and maintenance are key to getting it to perform correctly. And finally, there's emerging technologies. This doesn't have a lot of material as a module, but this is an expandable module where it's a placeholder for inclusion for some emerging technologies. Such right now the only one that exists in there is the aerobic vapor migration barrier, which basically creates an aerobic bio vapor for specifically petroleum vapors. And it's a newer technology. It doesn't really fit under either active or passive, and it's not really a full remediation technology either. So we kind of created this in case there were new technologies that came along throughout the process. Again, this is a snapshot of the document map. The website is currently under development. We are expecting it to be live later in December. Looks like we're on track. We're working with a web developer right now to get it working. All the links and everything are coming together, so we're very hopeful that by the end of December that you should be getting a note in your email box about this being live. And then you should be able to use this document map and drive right to the portions of the document that are most important to you. The internet-based training that we have coming out is broken down into 2 sessions. The first session covering CSM for vapor intrusion mitigation, public outreach, rapid response, and ventilation, as well as remediation and institutional controls. And the second session will go through active and passive mitigation systems, as well as system verification, OM&M, and exit strategies. The class offerings are already scheduled, and the first offering will be for session 1 on June 1st, with the second session being offered on June 15th. The second class offering will be on September 14th, and the second session will be on September 28th. The registration will be available through ClueIn. Obviously, we're a little bit ahead of the time, but we just wanted to make sure that you could put it as a save the date. So look for these dates coming down the road, and these will be our first internet-based training offerings of our class. So we look forward to seeing you during those times. So as a quick summary and a wrap up, vapor intrusion, PVI, and vapor control strategies, we kind of went through on what kind of things you'll find when you are able to access the web-based page. We went through an overview of the documentation that you'll see, including fact sheets, tech sheets, and checklists that are available throughout the process. And we kind of introduced you to the document map that will be a main part of the web page that helps you drive to the different information. And we kind of went over and we went up some of the upcoming internet-based training dates. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over for questions and or over to Patty.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks to all of our speakers. I don't see many questions coming in. Come on, guys, we must have some questions for these guys. Any technical questions or any generic ITRC questions? I added 2 comments in the chat. Anybody can sign up for our mailing list to get notified when new products are coming out, trainings are coming up, or new teams. So that's there.
So I can answer Frank Branco's question. Hello, Frank, from EA. He had a comment or question about how the study results from CERTUP and ESTCP research projects come into the ITRC deliverables. And yeah, that, if you're not familiar, that's the US DoD research program. A lot of innovative things happen there. What we do, we did go through, for the PFAS team, we did go through all of the recent awards, and we put in the document where there were projects that were ongoing or recently awarded. So there was kind of a little call out box with a list of the CERTUP projects that applied to each technology in the remediation technology section of the PFAS Tech Reg document. Then once things are published, I mean, one of the criteria for getting into the document is having publishable, referenceable technical knowledge or information. So once the reports come out and are published, then we have gone in and added in where we have data available or information available. So, you know, some of the projects I know that Frank was involved in have only recently been published. I don't think that got into the document because it was in the last stages of revision. So there's kind of an attempt. I would say it's not 100% that everything that comes out of CERTUP ESTCP gets into the documents, but there's an attempt amongst the team to try to bring that in, because that's what we're looking for, is the latest information and data supporting a technology approach.
I have it. This is Rick. I want to ask a question in general. I recall most of the ITRC documents also include some very good case studies on the top.
Right.
And that's pretty good. Patty, I have a question for you. A lot of members of SAMI are employees of the Navy, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Air Force. I'm familiar with the IAP program, being part of Battelle or other industry companies. What I know the states are involved. If I'm a member of the Corps of Engineers, like let's say Pittsburgh District or Baltimore, and I want to join the ITRC team, what's the criteria for government employees?
So there are no specifications. Anybody from a state, federal agency is welcome to sign up. We have a lot of Corps of Engineers employees on teams, and we strongly encourage them. I just want to go back and add that CERTUP ESTCP is very active in ITRC. They're on our board. They review everything. They advise us on what teams. They give us a heads up on what issues are priorities for CERTUP. When we look at selecting new teams, they actually rank our new teams beforehand. So Andrea Leeson and Herb Nelson from CERTUP ESTCP are both very active with us and in decision making.
Great.
But we have a lot of DoD folks, staff on the teams.
Matt mentioned ClueIn, and for people who don't know what that is, if you go to EPA.gov or ClueIn, CLU-IN.gov, it's an excellent resource for technical materials, training seminars, and it's another way of accessing ITRC training sessions, which are announced there. So,
that's
you know, right now,
that's the cleanup office, the OLEM office at EPA. That's their platform for all their trainings. Every year, ITRC has at least 40 live trainings on their platform, and they have an additional 80. So about 120 classes are ongoing. They're all live every week. There are some training classes going on. It's free, sign up. They have first 500 people. Our classes have been selling out at 500 recently with COVID. People are home taking classes. You can get certificate at the end, get your credits. It's free, and yeah, and you can listen anytime. You don't have to listen to a live one. All of the EPA trainings are all recorded. You can listen anytime.
Right, and as Gladys mentioned, if we get back to live conferences, ITRC does provide at the various conference venues, including Battelle. I guess so. This slide here has contact information for Patty and our presenters today. Feel free to reach out to them. This presentation has been recorded and it will be posted on the SAMI Environmental Community of Interest website. If you have any questions about the COI, please feel free to go there and you can click on me and Rick Weiss and get your questions in. So Patty, with that, any closing remarks or any of our presenters, anything, as we're doing really good on time here and get people back to their jobs. So any closing remarks or suggestions? I'll open it up to any of our presenters right now for a quick closer.
I have one final before I thank you, Rick, for being such a great partner for so long. And that is that ITRC is having an outreach event on December 15th. It's 1 hour. Free to join anytime. It's on our website. It's called ITRC and Me. And we're going to go over not what ITRC is, but all of the technical documents that were completed in 2020. So if you want information on what's going to be released this month and when the trainings are for all of our teams, you heard from 3 today. But we had 7 teams finish up their work this year, and that's on December 15th. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
That's great. So I guess with that, thank everyone who took time out from their day today to join us. I hope you learned something useful. We invite you to be active in the COI, and I'd like Jane as our chair of webinars to have the honor of closing with the final remark, Jane.
Yeah, I just had one question.
On
Thanks, Rick. And I just had one question. It looks like we had 2 hands raised, and I think it was audio issues, but Tamel, I don't know if you could mute them and see if they actually have a question for Patty or for the presenters. And yes, like Rick said, we are always looking for presenters for the environmental COI, and I know that he mentioned it at the top of the hour, but this presentation will be available at our website at SAMI. If you have trouble accessing that, feel free to reach out to Tamel or to Rick and I, and we'll help you to find that, and would love to have you participate in our group or present to the environmental COI.
Right, Jane's our webinar chair, and she does a lot of hard work to help the membership here, so we appreciate it very much. She's been doing this for a number of years, and she doesn't get the plug she should get. Now she's getting it with my big smiley face.
That's good.
On that note, I guess, Tamel, we can close it out.
All right, thank you guys for joining and participating. Appreciate you guys.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.